Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am very, very cold at the moment because I'm waiting for the heating to turn on at the moment. We're just a few minutes away from Prime Minister's questions. The date and time of this PMQs is the 27th of November at 2024 UK time. We are dual streaming live on youtube.com/REGANELITE and on twitch.tv/REGANELITE1. And I know some people will say, he looks like he's a bank robber ready to rob a bank. I can assure you I have no intentions of doing any kind of robbery whatsoever today, guys. I am just very, very cold right now. Literally the last 5 minutes or so, I'm just really, really cold. So obviously means that I need to go and warm myself up. So I'm probably going to go for a long walk or something after this, guys, because it'll probably do me some good, that's for sure. Mad Monk 33, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. And Akismad as well. And Mark Lease 1998. Good to see you all there. Hope you're all doing well. And anybody else who may be lurking in the chat is not saying hello, or in the Twitch chat, they might be lurking and not saying hello. Hello. But obviously, I will pause it whenever I want to share my thoughts as we go along. Let me just make sure the adjustments are all right. At the moment, it's just a bit of... We just got 1 or 2 minutes before it gets going. Just to remind you, there'll be another live stream tonight at 8 o'clock on the Snowflake Watch. We'll cover various stories there, not just in the UK, but possibly in the Middle East. Obviously, what's happening with Lebanon, the ceasefire there, possibly as well. So we may have that as well. I think it's just starting.
According to Women's Aid, a fifth of all crime in Northern Ireland.
Nope, it's not. Still talking about Northern Ireland. I didn't think they started because I didn't see the Prime Minister sit down. Yeah, so they'll probably be covering that. I may save Gaza, maybe not tonight, maybe for tomorrow, most likely. But we'll have to wait and see on that. We're just waiting for the Prime Minister, because he's not sat down at the moment. It is 12 o'clock, so hopefully he should arrive any moment and we can get going. Someone was asking me to explain how Discord works. I will do that on Friday Lights. Someone wanted me to do a self-explanatory of how Discord works, because I know somebody requested that, so I will do that on Friday Lights. And there are 1 or 2 other things that I'd like to address as well that I'm going to do on there as well. For people. Oh, he is there. He just hasn't taken his seat yet. He's been forced to stand there and wait, which is a bit annoying. One Angry Pagan, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Just do check out One Angry Pagan's YouTube channel. And a reminder, myself, One Angry Pagan, and Dave McGuinness and Random Scottish History will be doing a Snowflakes Roundtable next month on the 14th of 14th. It is 14th, isn't it? My mind's not going blank. No, the 12th of December. My apologies. 12th of December. Thursday the 12th of December. That one there. So just to remind myself, they are still talking there just right now. Still waiting for him to take his seat. I don't know what's dragging so long to let him sit down, but obviously they're very at the moment they're doing it. It's a Northern Ireland debate, which only, like, I was looking at the schedule. I realised that they only have half an hour. It's not a very lot of time, but I don't know how much of it is going to be talked about. But yeah, Prime Minister's finally sitting down, so this looks like the last question they're going to do, and then they're finally going to be in there. Oh my God, that's Nigel Farage. I think Farage is actually there. It makes a change that he's actually there for as well. So that's actually, I'll switch it over now for you guys, so you don't have to stare at me or stare at the bank robber. That we're just waiting for it to get going. Just saying, Northern Ireland oral questions. It's a bit, yeah. Yeah. I can't speak on Northern Ireland really. It's not really my topic or my knowledge, to be fair. There. More questions. Oh my days. I thought that was it. Sorry, guys. You think 12 o'clock? Yeah, there'd be, but it's obviously dragged on a bit longer than it should do, if I'm honest, really. I'm not saying that this isn't important, but you know, you have a time slot. You know, it'd be nice if they kept to it if possible, but not up to me, obviously. So, do we think Kemi's going to have a good one, good session this time around? I'm not sure. I'm not holding much hopes of. I'm not holding much hopes of Kemi having a good one here. Let's hope that the SMPs get to speak this time as well. It'd be nice if they get to speak a bit as well.
Effective policing. That was a clear commitment in New Decade, New Approach. By when does the Minister expect the policing numbers in Northern Ireland to reach those levels set out in that commitment?
I don't worry, Mark, please. If you can't be here, it's fine.
A record-breaking devolution settlement of 18.2 billion, with 640 million this year, 1.5 million next year, and it's up to the Chief Constable now to be spending those figures.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Daisy Cooper.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the sympathies of everyone in this House will be with those affected by the devastating flooding that we've seen recently. And our thanks goes to all those working tirelessly to support the affected communities. Mr. Speaker, we've committed £2.4 billion over the next 2 years to build, maintain and repair vital defences to protect more communities from the awful impact of the flooding. Mr. Speaker, the ceasefire announced in Lebanon is long overdue, but demonstrates that diplomacy can succeed even in the most challenging of circumstances. We must seize this opportunity to build trust, de-escalate tensions and push for a wider ceasefire. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Good to see you, Mr. Keir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I associate myself with those remarks of those of the Prime Minister? West Hertfordshire Hospital Trust has eliminated 65-week waits, and they have now met all 3 national cancer standards. These remarkable achievements by the staff are happening despite the fact that they are working in terrible buildings that are life expired and crumbling. If the government is looking for a project that is high-performing and shovel-ready, this is it. So will the Prime Minister give our trust the green light to build a new hospital without any further delay?
I thank her for raising the issue and obviously of importance to her constituents and beyond. Look, the new hospital programme that we inherited was a failure of the previous government. We are committed to delivering. We're reviewing to make sure we can deliver. The Health Secretary set out further details, but I'm very happy for her to have a meeting with the relevant minister if she wants to follow up on the specifics. Thank you.
Chris Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Residents in Red House Park in my constituency are suffering from soaring management fees and poor service from their leaseholder management company. Recent BBC reporting has once again demonstrated the consequences of the outdated and feudal leasehold system. All of them are frustrated by the broken promises of the previous government, so will the Prime Minister reassure them that this government will introduce legislation as soon as possible to resolve the leaseholder and leaseholder crisis?
Mr. Speaker, yes, we will do so. I agree that the last government totally failed to tackle the unfairness of the leasehold system. We will provide homeowners with more powers, protection and greater rights by bringing that legislation forward. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bello.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the CBI conference on Monday, the Chancellor said, and I quote, "I'm clear, I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes." I know that telling the truth to this House is important to the Prime Minister. So will he repeat his Chancellor's pledge now?
Mr. Speaker, we set out our position at the budget that was just set out. We're fixing the foundations. We're dealing with the 22 billion black hole.
Can we hear something different? Sorry, guys, to pause it, but can we hear something different? Like, I think it was a very good question by Kemi, because it's putting the Prime Minister on the spot as to whether or not that putting the pressure on the Prime Minister to say the same thing as the Chancellor there. And it is interesting that the Chancellor did say that at the CBI conference, but obviously he's not going to say that in any way, shape or form. So guys, I just want to say a massive thank you to Alistair Keir for gifting 10 memberships to Mark Lees 1998, Ange, Bernie Burrows, Cathal OG, Roger Devine, Rachel, Firestarter, Lewis McGee, and Terry Regan, and John Roycroft have all been gifted memberships. Thank you so much, my friend, for the gifted memberships. I really appreciate that. I hope you're nice and warm, and I hope you have a good day, Alistair. And same to everybody else there. That's very kind of you, my friend.
That they left. I'm not going to write the next 5 years of budgets here at this dispatch box. But, Mr. Speaker, we said we wouldn't hit the pay slips of working people. We passed the budget, we invest in the future, and we kept that promise.
Directly, you haven't. Indirectly, you have.
Mr. Speaker, he's not fixing any foundations. He's making everything worse. The whole House would have heard him refuse to repeat the Chancellor's pledge, a pledge as worthless as the manifesto promises that he's talking about. If he is fixing foundations, why is it that the PMI index shows that business confidence has crashed since the budget?
Mr. Speaker, we're fixing the foundation. We've got record investment into this country. But she talks about tax rises. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, she stood there and said that she wanted all the investment, all the benefits of the budget, but she didn't know how she was going to pay for it. I noticed that, having come here criticising the national insurance rises over and over again, on Monday she admitted that she wouldn't reverse the position that we set out. Meanwhile, her science minister was saying he was going energetically to do the opposite. They really haven't got a clue what they're doing.
That's a very nice swipe at Kemi, and she's right. She's sitting on the fence on it. That's not very good when the position is not clear.
Mr. Speaker, if he wants to know what Conservatives would do, he should resign and find out.
We already know what you guys have done. You've been in power for 14 years, so... no, we don't want you.
Until then...
I'll decide when there's more.
Mr. Speaker, until then, I'm the one asking the questions. There's a petition out there, 2 million people asking him to go.
Oh, there's also 6 million people asking to rejoin the EU, but you won't talk about that, will you?
He's the one who doesn't know. He's the one who doesn't know how things work. It is not government that creates growth, Mr. Speaker. It is business. His employment secretary, I don't see her here, she wants more young people in work. But businesses say they are cutting jobs because of the Chancellor's budget. His Deputy Prime Minister, she is not here. Her employment rights bill will stop businesses hiring. That's what they say.
That is actually true. What those two last statements are true, what Kemi is saying.
The CBI said on Monday that the dots of the government's policy don't join up. They're right, aren't they?
Mr. Speaker, on Monday she said that she wouldn't reverse the increase in national insurance. Yesterday, on their legacy legislation, their predecessor, they couldn't decide what their position was. Today, they've launched a policy commission asking other people to give them some ideas for government. And she talks about a petition. We had a massive petition on the 4th of July in this country. We spent years taking our party from a party of protest to a party of government. They're hurtling in the opposite direction.
Very good.
What a load of nonsense, Mr. Speaker. We had a budget in March this year, and tractors were not blockading the streets of Whitehall afterwards.
Yeah, but you guys have the right-wing media behind you. That's something that, that's not something that Labour has.
So let me give him another example of a real business. Following his budget, the head of McVitie's has said that it has been harder to understand what the case for investment in the UK is. So while the Prime Minister has been hobnobbing in Brazil, businesses have been struggling to digest his budget. Isn't it the case, Mr. Speaker, that the Employment Rights Bill shows that it is not only the ginger nut that is causing him problems?
Very nice puns there from Kemi. I will say that is a bit funny with the McVitie's there. It is a bit of nonsense, but I will say it is a bit. I do find that funny from Kemi. I'll give her credit there.
I was attending the G20. I suspect on their current trajectory, they don't know whether they're going to attend the G20 or not. Maybe the Policy Commission will come up with an answer on that one. But we've had record investment from overseas investment into this country. And she keeps carping from the sidelines. She says at this dispatch book, she wants all the benefits of the budget, all the investment, but she doesn't want to pay for any of it. Mr. Speaker, she's racked up £6.7 billion of unfunded commitments in just 3 weeks as leader of the opposition. So once it comes to the economy, we're the ones growing the economy.
It does feel a lot more like a circus at the moment than it normally is.
Mr. Speaker, the investment he's taking credit for was our work. I was business secretary. We negotiated those deals that he announced. But the bottom line is that in all that he has said, he doesn't seem to care about the young people who will lose their jobs as a result of his budget. Perhaps he can show more concern for the 1,100 people who found out yesterday that they could lose their jobs at Vauxhall's plant in Luton. So while he flies around making unilateral commitments, back home, the real-world effects are businesses closing in Bedfordshire and Basildon. Does the Prime Minister stand by his promise to ban the sale of petrol cars by 2030, even if more jobs will be lost?
That's a very good question.
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't normally invite a heckle, but that one was accurate. Mr. Speaker, the question of the position of jobs in Luton is a very serious one, and families and workers will be very worried, and we are obviously engaging with them. I would remind the Leader of the Opposition that the EV mandates that are an issue in this particular case were actually introduced by the last government. I would also remind her that she was the business secretary that introduced them. We're getting on with supporting those communities. She's shouting from the sideline.
You know, when you talk about business and being a former business secretary, and Doc Davis just hit the nail on the head there, the Brexit. No one mentions Brexit. Exactly. Exactly, Doc. Good to see you.
Mr. Speaker, he clearly didn't read his briefing about the EV mandate. The fact is, we changed the date and made it easier for people. Everything he has done is attack people. The budget was an attack on farmers, an attack on workers, an attack on pensioners, an attack on the young, and an attack on thousands of charities and businesses across the country. The whole system is broken, Mr. Speaker, and he is making things worse. He is making things worse. Mr. Speaker, he is making things worse. Everyone is unhappy. Isn't it a good thing that the Chancellor is an expert at customer complaints?
Yep. Yes, growing the economy, Vauxhall, and are closing the plant, but that's the Tories' fault due to Brexit. Yeah, Brexit is the main culprit there, yeah. But obviously, Labour are using it to beat a stick over the Conservatives because it was under their watch, of course.
Mr. Speaker, I think she's just read out the charge sheet against the last government. Everything is broken. And they come here every week with absolutely nothing to offer except complaints. Nothing constructive, no new ideas. They don't know what they're doing from one day to the next. Living in this fantasy world that everything was fine, apparently, for 14 years. Well, the country's fed up with those fantasies. They've got rid of those fantasies. We're going to take the hard decisions. They're jumping on every bandwagon that's passing. We're taking the country forward.
Imran Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we enter the last week of Islamophobia Awareness Month, the Prime Minister will know that this year has been an extraordinarily difficult for British Muslims on the receiving end of society's most deplorable attitudes, considered easy prey for the far right and scapegoated by politicians endorsing institutional Islamophobia. And the reality is this emboldening and normalisation of Islamophobia, as highlighted in a number of reports, led to the race riots we saw on the streets of Britain this summer, where mosques and those who are visibly Muslim were subject to despicable attacks, with many left fearing for their lives. So will the Prime Minister condemn those in public office and positions of power who actively promote Islamophobia? Will he commit to adopting a definition today? And will he further outline what concrete steps the government is taking to rip out Islamophobia at its roots, including in this place?
It is rooted. There is rooted of that in that house and in the country, and it's been exacerbated by what happened. It's been exacerbated even more than ever before by what happened on October the 7th in the Middle East. And ever since then, they have been targeted more and more because of it. And immigration has been the driving force behind it as well. The right wing have used and weaponized Islamophobia as a means to target them, to misdirect people's problems, issues with a particular religion or society of people, which is outrageous and wrong in every sense of the word. And you can say the same thing about Jewish people as well, because many of them have become targets of people simply because they are Jewish, where many of them have absolutely nothing to do with what's going on over in the Middle East, but they are still targeted nonetheless because of their religion. And this anti-Semitism, this needs to be cut out. This needs to be clamped down on, and those who think that it's okay or any kind of justifiability need to be punished and need to face the full wrath of the law. I don't think that Keir Starmer is going to give him all the answers he wants, but I'm sure he will condemn Islamophobia in every sense of the word.
Mr. Speaker, he's right to raise Islamophobia, and there's been a concerning rise in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism over recent months, and we are committed to tackling all forms of hatred, and we will work with others on an ongoing basis to make sure that we do. Thank you.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Red Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks about the terrible impact of Storm Bert with all the flooding? Our thoughts are with all those affected, with thanks to our amazing emergency services. Mr. Speaker, Christine's father was told that he needed end-of-life care, but after a few days it was removed due to funding cuts. He was told that he wouldn't get it, and he died a few weeks later in excruciating pain. Christine said it was terrible to watch him suffer. Does the Prime Minister agree that whatever the House decides on Friday, it is urgent to improve access to high-quality end-of-life care? And will he make that a key focus of the 10-year NHS plan? And will he commit now to protect hospices from the national insurance rise?
That's a very good question from Dave. Just before we hear on it, I just want to comment on this. I've talked about this a few times, and I'm in favour of assisted dying because I believe that people should have the right to be able to switch off, to be able to end their life when they are terminally ill and they have no other way out of it. I think that people should have that right and that choice. I understand the concerns and the issues raised against it. I also believe that this will not pass on Friday, regardless. I really don't think it will pass. I think there's too many people against it for it to pass. But I do agree with him, and I'm sure you all guys do agree with me in the comments, that end-of-life care needs to be improved, as does all departments in the National Healthcare Service, because you want to give people the best end-of-life care quality as you possibly can. But The reason why I'm more in favour for it is because of the safeguards in the bill, but secondly is those, no matter how much you can improve end of life care as much as you want, but if a person is suffering and is in extraordinary pain as their time runs out, you can't fix that, no matter how much money and investment you put in. And sometimes it is better to let them make that decision for them rather than leaving them in pain and suffering.
I thank you for raising that case, and I think the thoughts of the whole House with the family involved. And, Mr. Speaker, obviously there's a very important vote on Friday, but whichever way that vote goes, we must invest properly in care across our health service, and that's why, in addition to putting the NHS back on its feet, we're putting forward a 10-year plan to make sure the NHS can give the care that everybody would expect across the spectrum, including end-of-life care.
Ed David. Can I thank the Prime Minister for that reply, and I hope we'll hear more from ministers, particularly on hospices and national insurance, in days to come. Turning to the cost of living crisis, on Friday, Ofgem said that in January, energy bills would go up again after last month's 10% rise. Millions of people are really worried about how they're going to make ends meet this winter, not least hundreds of thousands of pensioners who are in poverty but above the pension credit limit, who will now lose winter fuel payments. So with energy bills going up again, will the Prime Minister reconsider and restore winter fuel payments?
Well,
no, of course he won't. Is your simple answer.
Mr. Speaker, obviously the whole House is concerned about energy bills, which are actually lower this year than they were last year. The long-term way to deal with this is clean power by 2030, to make sure we drive those energy bills down on a permanent basis. And that's what we will do. On the winter fuel allowance, he knows very well what the government's position is, and I've rehearsed it, indeed, with him many times.
The answer is no. And I do agree that while obviously we need to make a transition in the energies that we use, the problem is time. People don't have time. People will die during this winter. We know that. It's about protecting people from what's coming. And some people are not going to be able to pay for these increasing bills. Yes, they are, as the Prime Minister says, they're better than they were last year. Yes, but they're still going up nonetheless. And they need to stop going up. The bills need to stop going up because it's already a struggle for people as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Antisocial behaviour involving modified and off-road bikes is a menace that has a huge impact on communities like mine in Sunderland. While I welcome the work Northumbria Police do in partnership with our council on this issue, they need stronger powers and more resources. Can the Prime Minister outline how he will back the police to tackle the misery caused by intimidating and downright dangerous antisocial behaviour on bikes?
Well, I thank him for raising this, because antisocial behaviour affects so many people. Sometimes it's described to me as low level. It isn't in the impact it has, particularly when it comes to off-road bikes. And that's why we're implementing tough new respect orders, which will give powers to the police, including powers to seize off-road bikes, but crucially adds a power of arrest for breach of the orders, something that's been missing in recent years. So we will tackle this because it blights communities across the country.
I want to speak on this, guys, as someone who used to ride bikes as someone used to take the bike, ride the bike to a station. I used to cycle to the station, and then I would take the bike on the train, and then I would take the bike off and cycle from the station to the store. And I had a fold-up bike, and I wore a yellow vest and a helmet. And at no point throughout any of my cycling to and from the when I used to do that job, I never cycled on the pavement. Never did. I always cycled on the road, even though I know even though I could do and get away with it, I always cycled on the road because that is where I'm supposed to cycle. Now some people will argue that when there's no cycle lanes, that they don't want to cycle, like, because some people cycle with their kids or whatnot. I'm a bit hesitant to say about the difference of those who cycle with, like, say for instance, mums and dads cycling with their kids, for instance, on the path. Maybe that you should be a bit more, I would say, a bit more lenient on. But when we're talking about Deliveroo drivers, for example, cycling on the pathway, when clearly they should be cycling on the road, that's something that really pisses me off. I've seen cyclists not even cycle on the cycle lane and literally just cycle wherever they want, and there's no repercussions whatsoever. There are many cyclists who are doing it properly, but there are also some who think that they can just cycle on the pathway because they can. And I think there needs to be much clearer distinction about where cyclists can and cannot. And I do think there needs to be tougher ones, especially on those who are antisocial as well, on that. So I think that it is because the thing is it specifically is on antisocial, to be fair. And yes, as Alistair Keir says it is the e-scooters too running on the pavements, no helmet, dark clothes. Yeah. Well, the law's not. As far as I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I haven't seen, like, what's the guidance on e-scooters? There isn't a guidance. Like, there are some other devices where people just basically, where it takes them from A to B as well, that they use on the pavements as well. There needs to be a clear guidance on this and on that. So it's very frustrating. I just want to say a massive thank you again, Alistair Keir, for another 5 gifted memberships. It's very kind of you, my friend. He's gifted 5 gifted memberships to Benjamin, Mr. E, Nature's Admirer, and Random Scottish History, FC UK. There have all been gifted memberships. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you, and good to see you there, Genie Bottle. Just read this comment before we carry on. Mad Monk 33 says, during the pandemic, the Scottish government put in a shed load of cycle lanes in the country. Folks complained about it, but the death rates of cyclists have dropped. That's a very good time to do it. During the pandemic, when everything was quiet. That's definitely. I'm all in favour of more cycle lanes. I definitely think we should be doing. We should be pushing more for more cycle lanes. And I do love when I go to certain places where they have them, because obviously it's very clear, especially when you have path on one side, cycle lane on the other. It's very clear for people, and so if you walk on the cycle lane, you get hit by a cycle, that's your fault because you walked on the wrong side, sort of thing. But yes, thanks for your comments, guys, and thanks for the gifted memberships, Alistair. I really appreciate your support.
Stephen Flynn. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As everyone in the House will be aware, we're currently in the middle of BBC Anti-Scam Awareness Week. And of course, the advice in that context is always simple. If you see a scam, you should report it. So with that in mind, can the Prime Minister advise the House? Is he aware of anyone who's promised to reduce energy bills only for them to increase? Is he aware of anyone who promised to back business only to tax business? And is he aware of anyone who promised to protect pensioners only to pick their pockets for their winter fuel allowance?
Oh, Stephen, have we missed you? Oh, that's a very good one from Stephen Flynn. How do you think he's going to respond, guys?
Well, it's very good to see.
Sorry. The gallery will not clap and not interrupt the proceedings. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very glad to see him in his seat in this House, as I'm sure many of his colleagues in Scotland share that sentiment. What I can point to is a government in Scotland that promised to take Scotland forward and took them backwards. So I can identify the first one. It's right there.
Daria Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. November marks Islamophobia Awareness Month. Last year, the United Nations Human Rights Council adopted a resolution condemning the desecration of religious texts, including the Quran, despite opposition from the previous government. Acts of such mindless desecration only serve to fuel division and hatred within our society. Will the Prime Minister commit to introducing measures to prohibit the desecration of all religious texts and the profits of the Abrahamic religions?
Can I agree with him that desecration is awful and I think should be condemned across the House? We are, as I said before, Mr. Speaker, committed to tackling all forms of hatred and division, including, of course, Islamophobia in all of its forms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sarah and her family have farmed beef and cattle in my Gordon and Buchan constituency for over 70 years, and they'd always planned for her sister to continue the family legacy. Earlier this year, Sarah's mother died very suddenly and unexpectedly, and she was just 58. Sarah said to me that despite already having a tragic year, it was made even worse after the budget, saying that changes to agricultural property relief has hit us hard when we're already struggling with bereavement and trying to cope with losing mum. What would the Prime Minister say to Sarah and her family on what has been the most difficult year of their lives, in light as well of the family farm tax?
Before we answer that question, while I deeply sympathise with the farm with this tragedy, and I really, really do, it would be wrong to undo this inheritance tax. That will in fact improve British farmers overall. I would also recommend do check out No Justice's latest video on this, because she adds some really key points, because she covered the video that Richard Murphy had with the Sky News debate last week, and she covered it on her live stream, but she's put it in a video which I think is really, really good to help break down the context there, because the point of inheritance tax is to break up some family farms, but it is also to give opportunity for new people who want to break into farming as well. And there is nothing wrong with people being in the farm industry and having legacies as well, but there are also people in the UK who actually want to have a farm too, and it's not always as simple, straightforward as well. And plus, we want to keep the lands off the. We don't want people taking those going into farming for the simple fact of dodging inheritance tax as well.
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to her for raising the case and the awful bereavement. And if she would kindly send me the details of the case, then I'll certainly have a look at it. In relation to farming more broadly, as she knows, £5 billion was set aside in the budget over the next 2 years as an investment in farming. That's the biggest amount that's ever been set aside. I hear the chuntering, but they actually failed to spend the last farming budget by £300 million. On the question of inheritance and family farms, obviously it's important to bear in mind in a typical case, which is parents passing to a child, the threshold is £3 million, and that is why, as she knows, the vast majority of farms will be totally unaffected.
Neil Coyle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Southwark faces a significant challenge of antisocial behaviour, but fewer police today than in 2010 due to Tory cuts in coalition with the Lib Dems. As the Prime Minister fixes the postcode lottery and law and order, will he consider the request from Southwark Police, Southwark Council and myself for our community to be a pilot test area for the new respect orders to address this serious problem?
Well, I'm grateful for him for raising this, because public has been badly eroded under the last government, and we will drive that up with a major programme of reform. That includes recruiting 13,000 more police into neighbourhood policing and the tough new respect orders, coupled with the power to arrest for breach of the order.
And Alistair Keir, thank you so much again. Very kind of you, my friend, for a £2 super chat. He said, in my opinion, it should have been a land tax. Yes, this is something that even Phil Morehouse has said in his videos, that it should have been a land tax as well. Yeah, taxing the land would have been a better option there. One Angry Pagan rightfully points out, what about the non-Abrahamic faiths? Never anyone speak up for us, for FF's sakes. Yes, absolutely as well. Pagans are being ignored once again. And you're absolutely right. Their faiths, obviously, their issues and concerns should be addressed just as much as any others. And rightfully well pointed there, my friend. I just want to point out as well, he says that farming has to change anyway. The farmers can't just keep doing things as they have for years. They, due to the need for environment and restoration and climate change. 100% agree. They do need to adapt to the climate. They will have to adapt to the climate, or there won't be a farm for them to work on. So I 100% agree with that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I sincerely hope that all of us in this House agree that good government is transparent government. In response to my written question on publishing the number of foreign nationals receiving universal credit, I was informed by a Department of Work and Pensions Minister that the feasibility of developing suitable official statistics was being examined. Will the Prime Minister today commit to using his good offices to publish this data transparently?
Well, I'm grateful to him for raising this, and I know there's been an exchange on it, and as soon as I've got an update for him, I will provide that for him so that he's got it. Thank you.
What was the point of that question? Another Reform MP with another fucking pointless question. Sorry for swearing, guys. I had to get that off my chest. That's why I was yawning, because I knew it wasn't a question to take seriously, and surprise, surprise, it was not a question to be taken seriously.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Within weeks
Thanks for popping in, Joe. Appreciate it.
of a Labour government, the government delivered for the mine workers in the mine workers pension scheme. So it was so well received, and it was justice done. However, is it not time to seek the truth with regards to the policing during the miners' strike? And would the Prime Minister commit to an early and full inquiry into the policing during the miners' strike, something which this lot denied for generations?
I'm just going to put this out here. Like, I'm sure that would be something that people will agree on, but did not Labour look at this when Tony Blair was in charge? I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, I'm grateful for him for raising this. That question of the mine workers' pension scheme reversed a historic injustice, and I was so pleased we're able to do that in the budget. In relation to the miners' strike, as I think he knows, I've met some of the Orgreave campaigners and listened very carefully to what they say. They are entitled to the truth, and we're thinking carefully about what the next step should be in order to deliver that for them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next month marks 2 years since the death of Cody Fisher, a young man from my constituency of Stratford-on-Avon. Cody was a talented footballer with a bright future whose life was tragically cut short when he was stabbed in a nightclub in Birmingham. His mother, Tracy, has been campaigning tirelessly in his memory for legislation which would require venues to wear bleed kits and metal detectors. In the light of the government's commitment to tackling knife crime, will the Prime Minister meet with Tracy and me to discuss these vital proposals to better protect young people like Cody from the devastating impact of knife crime?
Prime Minister.
I think that's something that they should have a look at into. I'm not sure whether or not I would go as far as metal detectors in clubs and that, because it does give a bit of an intimidating idea for it. I understand the case for it. I really, really do. A part of me feels like, is that necessary? Is that something that should be legislated? I'm a bit torn on this topic, but I definitely think the government should listen to, definitely meet with the mother and definitely look at this. That is for sure. But I'm not sure if I would want to go as far as every single club and whatnot having metal detectors and that. I'm not so sure about that, guys. But maybe that's just me. But interested to hear your thoughts about it.
Well, I thank the honourable member for raising the tragic case and pay tribute to Tracy for her campaigning. I've met a number of families on this issue of bleed kits, so I know firsthand just how important it is. We are taking measures in relation to knife crime, which includes banning the sale of online knives, making less available, a course to take young people out of offending where we can, and real penalties. But I am happy to look at bleed kits, and I will make sure that she gets a meeting with the relevant minister to hear more of what we're doing, but also to make her case.
Rachel Hopkins.
Mr Speaker, and I refer to my register of interests. The proposed closure of Luton's Vauxhall van plant by Stellantis is devastating news for our town.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 jobs at risk and the future prosperity of our town threatened. So can the Prime Minister assure me there will be cross-departmental response to support the automotive sector, but importantly, good skilled jobs in Luton?
Very important.
Yes, I will, and I know, and thank her for raising this, because it is a difficult and uncertain time for workers in Luton and her constituents and their families. And that's why we're working with the industry. There will in fact be a statement later on today, Mr Speaker, about this. It's important we do whatever we can to support these communities.
Then Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Tenbury Wells was flooded again with Storm Bert last weekend. The second time the town has been flooded this year, and it's a town where it's only a case of when, not if, it will flood again. And the situation is made even more devastating for residents because there is a fully developed flood defence plan that is partly funded for the town. And the budget carried forward £2.4 billion for flood defences. Can the Prime Minister commit to be able to use his what to finally get this scheme built and to fix the foundations of Tenbury Wells?
I wonder what government beforehand, what political party beforehand was so slow in issuing such important flood defences in her constituency. I wonder who was responsible. If only I could think of who was possibly responsible for it. It just feels like to me that she's crying, I feel like that the premise of her question is that she can't lash too far out at Labour because they've only been in power for a certain amount of time. But she's trying to convey it in such a way to say that we've been preparing and setting up these defences in my constituency. And I'm like, girl, your party's been in power for 14 years. Why does it really take 14 years to get these flood defences that you've been talking about through? In all seriousness, like, I can understand if it takes a couple of years, but we're talking about 14 years. Sorry, but it's a bit hard for me to accept that from her, because I think she would be a lot more vigorous against her own party if she wanted to get those defences. I just feel like it's more of an attempt just to take a little dig at Labour there, if I'm honest, guys. It should be the same type of search if you would get if you attend a concert at a large stadium. Let me just put. I'll put this out, Mark Lees, because obviously I don't go to nightclubs and bars, so I can't speak from experience. But what I can speak from experience is I've been going to a lot of wrestling shows, and one specific place that I've been going to is a place called York Hall. Now every time, and it's in Bethnal Green in London. Now, no matter what show they have going on there, whether it's boxing, whether it's wrestling or whatever, you cannot enter. You have to be patted down when you go in. That you have to show your bag, whether it is a little bag, a purse, or whatever. You have to show your bag, and you have to get patted down in there. Now, I'm not saying that should be something done in every single venue, but they don't have metal detectors there. But if certain places certain areas, depending on the level of crime, the level of violence in those areas, that perhaps maybe metal detectors should be considered. But if they're being patted down before they go in, then it should be fine. But it's just those. It just depends. I would say, rather than an England whole thing or Scotland whole thing or UK whole thing, perhaps maybe it should be a constituency by constituency basis that it should be determined on. But then again, you open up some other vulnerable places there as well. More than one town needs flood defences. We need a national response. Yeah, absolutely, Warren Pagan. Absolutely. Julie Brown, good to see you there. I hope you're doing well.
Grateful to her for raising this, which is an awful situation for her constituents. We all know how devastating flooding is, the initial damage that it caused, but then the ongoing damage, including problems then of insurance, etc., that then prevail for many, many years. We are committed to tackling this. That's why we set aside the money that we did in the budget, and I'll happily arrange for her to have a meeting with the relevant minister to look at the particular details of her case. But I thank her for raising it, because I do know for her constituents it's such an important issue.
Yeah.
Smith.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last weekend in Cwmteleiri, torrential rain caused a landslip. Slurry, even boulders, poured down streets. People were afraid. The Chancellor just agreed a welcome £25 million for coal tip maintenance in Wales. Given the impact of extreme weather events, will the Prime Minister continue to prioritise coal tips to keep our communities safe?
Yes, I will, and I know how much of a concern it is to his constituents. Indeed, we went together to meet some of those constituents last time there was terrible flooding, but that commitment to the £25 million in relation to coal tips is very important. And what I would say on flooding, we've now had two questions on this. If other members of the House do have individual issues they're not able to raise here, if they get in touch with myself or my office, I'll make sure that they get whatever they need in support of their constituents.
Brendan O'Hara.
That's a very good point he's made at the end. 100 Pagan, thank you so much for being a member for 8 months. All hail the indomitable badger. Yes! All hail the indomitable badger. Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for being a member for 8 months, my friend. I really do appreciate it. I think, you know what, me and you should have another... Perhaps maybe me and you should have another wee chat again. I'll message you, see if we can set one up before everything all kicks off next month. Mark Lee says, not really a club gunner myself either, but it should be a bag searches and wardings. That was the process when I saw Bruce Steinerfein at Murrayfield. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think I do agree that certain areas where there's more crime or more violence than others, then yes, there should be some. But I don't think it needs to be everywhere, if I'm honest. But I can understand. I mean, if there is a case for it, it's not something that I wouldn't be anti against it. Because obviously at the end of the day, we want people to be safe. We want to be able to go to clubs, go to bars, go to whatever they want to, and be safe going in them and not worry about their well-being or anything like that. We want people to go to shows, go to bars, go to clubs, have a good time, and not ever have that cross their minds whatsoever on that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and of course we too welcome the ceasefire in Lebanon. But now that arrest warrants have been issued for his allies, Netanyahu and Gallant, the Prime Minister's determination to supply Israel with the weapons it requires to carry out its atrocities in Gaza, which has always been morally repugnant, is now completely untenable. But what these warrants do is present him with a perfectly valid legal avenue by which he can end the UK's complicity in this slaughter. So will he do that, or will the Prime Minister continue to choose to licence F-35 components to a regime which is now led by a man wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity?
Well said.
We've set out our position under the current law, as he well knows. I've set out my position very, very clearly in relation to the sale of capability to Israel to defend itself against attacks such as those from Iran. And I'm very clear that we'll continue to do so.
Catherine.
Yeah, with the same weapons that are being used against innocent people as well. Certainty needed for certain events and certain city venues, says Mark Lees. 100% agree, 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Derby City Centre is turning the page on 14 years of Conservative decline. With a new performance venue, a new business school and restored market hall. But across the country we see too many empty shops and quiet high streets.
Yes.
This budget is putting more money into the pockets of working people to spend supporting local businesses. Will the Prime Minister commit, contrary to Conservative scaremongering, to support and protect small businesses that are the beating heart of our high streets?
I just feel like you started like she started really well, and then she kind of like like of course he's gonna say, yeah, we're all for businesses and whatnot, and yes, most small businesses are protected from this national insurance employers' rights. Most small businesses, I want to say specifically small businesses, but many businesses are still going to be hit nonetheless with it. I was kind of hoping she was going across towards the deal with high streets, because we do have a problem with high streets, and not enough of them being, and not enough high streets shops are being opened, because that is something that is still problematic. I mean, even when me and my partner go to places that we haven't been before, I still see shops that have been closed down. I'll never forget the last time I went to Brighton. I think it's been taken now, but Brighton or somewhere on the south coast, that there was an old woolage shop, and it was there for like, it's been there for like 15, 20 years or whatever, like 20 plus years, and it's never no one's ever taken it. So I was hoping the question would be about high street specifically, but no, guys, it's not.
They can chunter all they like. She's describing their legacy. She's describing their legacy. We are turning that around. We're supporting small businesses. We're supporting the high street. We're rebuilding our country as they go backwards.
David Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituents in Exmouth and Exeter East and our neighbours across the southwest are understandably concerned about the rail disruption and potential economic damage that the HS2 construction at Old Oak Common will cause to our region for at least the next 7 years.
Oh, I wonder who started that. I wonder who started that. Who could that have possibly been responsible for? Even before he even finishes the question, already, I'm sorry, he looks a bit like a Wally with this question.
So will the Prime Minister please commit to producing a full mitigation plan as soon as possible to address these issues and to ensure that the South West does not lose out?
Prime Minister.
I'm grateful to him for raising the issue, which is of real importance to his constituents, and we have committed £30 million to mitigate the impact of the construction at Old Oak Common. Local services will be unaffected, and current plans will see services run between Exeter and London Euston. But I'm very happy again to arrange a meeting with the relevant minister if he wants that, in order to follow up on the particular concern of his constituents.
I'm not saying that his question isn't wrong, but I don't remember him chanting about this when his party were in power. Just want to put that on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 14 years of the Tories, our criminal justice system is on its knees, leaving just 4.4 of domestic assault cases recorded by the police, resulting in a conviction. With Monday just gone being the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, can the Prime Minister tell us what he's going to do to ensure the criminal justice system works for women and girls in North West Leicestershire and beyond?
Well, she's right to say the criminal justice system was broken by the last government, like everything else that they touched in the 14 years. Mr. Speaker, we take this extremely seriously. We've made a commitment to halving violence against women and girls. We're taking a number of measures in relation to that, piloting, for example, domestic abuse protection orders, and making it clear we will introduce a standalone offence of spiking. These are some of the measures which, frankly, we ought to be able to work across the House on, because the issue is of such importance.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ukraine faces a hell of a battle on its eastern front with Russia, but on the home front, the challenge is just as great. Just facing a harsh winter, just last week it was reported that 80% of its energy infrastructure is either damaged or destroyed. They desperately need power generators and associated equipment. So will the Prime Minister agree to meet with me to discuss the provision of energy aid to this important ally, Ukraine?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have provided support. This is a very serious issue, £370 million of support to the energy sector in Ukraine, which is being targeted by the Russian strikes. I will ensure that he gets a meeting with the relevant minister, and I'm pleased that on this issue there is unity across the House in our defence of Ukraine in the face of Russia's aggression.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After years of neglect under the previous Conservative government, GP surgeries...
Shut up, Tories. You can't say... God. They can't stand that they've been told over and over again of their failures. It's because they're not sorry. That's their problem.
And across North East Hampshire, they are preparing now for huge bills to pay increased employer national insurance contributions. Heart Health Partnership in Fleet estimates this will cost them 3 nursing salaries and have already reduced staff hours by 50 per week, with more cuts in January. Can the Prime Minister please tell GPs in my constituency which patient services they should cut in order to pay the bills?
That's nasty.
Mr. Speaker, she's absolutely right that the NHS was broken by the last administration. And the Darcy report makes that absolute... They should hang their heads in shame, frankly. We are providing in the budget £22 billion of additional funding this year for our NHS. That's a huge investment in our NHS, which is much welcomed across the NHS, much needed across the NHS. We will, of course, work with GPs and consult the sector on the services they provide and the money that they're entitled to in return. And all of that funding will be confirmed in the usual way.
Johnny Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recognise that Labour is determined to defend the economically disastrous Conservative policies of being outside the customs union and single market. However, does the Prime Minister agree with the principle that where it is in our country's interest to maintain alignment with EU standards so we can better sell our products internationally, we align, and where it is in our interest to diverge, we diverge?
I certainly agree that the deal we got under the last government is not the best deal that we can get, and that's why we're determined to reset the relationship, which we have already begun. Obviously, there'll be no return to freedom of movement, the customs union or the single market.
And probably under your premiership, but it will happen in the future. Mark my words.
But beyond that, we can increase, I think, and improve the situation, whether it comes to trading, to security and other cooperation, and we're actively working on that.
Final question, Frank McNally.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. Following a major fire at the Tradeby depot in my constituency in 2021, Scotland's clinical waste was forced to be transported to England due to a complete lack of forward planning. Tradeby was only appointed after the previous contractor collapsed, leaving human remains languishing in a warehouse. And it's now been revealed that the Spanish company was bailed out with £5.4 million of taxpayers' money. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that the SNP government has consistently failed to get a grip of clinical waste disposal and must act appropriately to protect the public purse and ensure public safety?
What? Oh my God. Oh my God. They cut it off. Well, that was stupid. Well, to be fair, guys, I think it was just going to be a swipe. I think it was going to be a swipe at the SNP with that one. Sorry about that. I don't know why the feed cut off there from you, because that's the official UK Parliament channel, so they should not be cutting off there. That's pretty embarrassing from their point of view. It was the last question there, so. All he probably was going to do was going to bash SNP. Now, obviously, I can't speak on that last question, so I don't know. So, obviously, I'll let Dave McGuinness address that either in tomorrow or Thursday. On Thursday with the Two Davies show at 4 o'clock. I'll let him address that issue on there. Final thoughts on PMQs. I thought Kemi was stupid. She made some stupid things there. I thought she was funny with the McVitie cringe joke. That was about I'm going to say it was funny. I know some people might not find it funny, but I thought it was funny. But apart from that, there were some interesting comments, some interesting questions there. I thought Ed Davey had some very good questions, but like with most Prime Minister's questions, we didn't really get some clear answers. I will say, obviously, that I will say that it was a nice touch by Sir Keir Starmer to basically say that those who are asking questions on flood defences, you know, to send it to him and he will pass it on to the relevant ministers and whatnot so they can chase that up, to rather avoid wasting time asking him those questions, because he had one from the Conservative and then one from Labour. So I thought that was pretty good anyway there, guys. I just want to say before I head out, thank you so much, Alistair Keir, for the gifted memberships and the super chat today. I really appreciate your support, my friend. I will be back tonight at 8 o'clock with the Snowflake Watch, where we will cover more news from the UK, and if we get and maybe we'll cover Lebanon, the ceasefire as well. I do want to get an additional video out on that for Rumble if possible as well, depending on if I can get time or not as well. But yeah, I will catch you guys tonight with that live stream. If not, I will be back tomorrow with the Snowflakes conflict there, guys. But just before I go, I just want to say, before I head out, what did you guys think of PMQs? You're not interested, okay? Well, we'll talk later then. Okay, they don't fancy talking tonight at the moment, guys. But thank you guys for all your comments. Thank you guys for your feedback. Really great appreciated. Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comments below when this live stream ends. But just before I go, I've got one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.